All right, this video is going to be about cam overlap and why it's beneficial. But before I get into that, I want to show a quick video of what a cammed car sounds like, because I think it's really cool. It sounds super choppy. And you can tell if it's a cammed car because of the choppiness. So, all right, this is gonna essentially be the diagram that we're working off of. So you've got your 4 pistons. You've got your valves. Each piston here has 2 exhaust valves and 2 intake valves that are back there. You can kind of see them. You can see them better right there. Those are the intake valves, and these are the exhaust valves. What'd I do? I don't know what I did. Okay. Cool. Well, what are camshafts? Camshafts are the things. They're the things right above the valves. These 2 big shafts. So what do? Well, the first thing you notice is that it's probably not the first thing you notice, but it's the first thing I'm going to talk about. You have your drive shaft down here. It's connected to this small gear, which is connected to these 2 big gears. And if you have a small gear connected to a big gear, that means this shaft, the camshaft, is spinning slower than the drive shaft. To be precise, it spins at half the speed of the drive shaft. Cool. Next, what are these lobes? What are these lobes? Well, as the camshaft spins, these lobes are going to wrap down. I'm going to wrap all the way around and wrap down and hit the top of these valves. And as they hit the valves, right here, as they hit the valves, they push them down and it opens it up. And it'll look better on my next run. Okay. Cool. I think that's all I want to talk about on this picture for now. So visual demonstration of this is down here. It's this one, the 4-stroke engine. Don't pay attention to the 2-stroke engine. So you got intake, compression, combustion, power stroke, exhaust, intake, compression, combustion, power stroke, exhaust. Cool. So as you can see, for every 1 rotation this spins, these spin at half the rate. The camshafts spin at half the rate. Cool. So I've broken down all 4 states over here. So you have the intake, combustion, power stroke, and then the exhaust stroke. Cool. So intake. This is your intake valve. This is your exhaust valve. So this is exactly what is up here. So you got your exhaust valve with your exhaust lobe and your intake valve back there with your intake lobe. Cool. So in your intake lobe, or in your intake step, the intake lobe is open, so it's pushing down on the valve, and your exhaust is to the side. And when it's to the side, it doesn't help. The valve's closed. Cool. Then the intake valve closes and you move to the combustion stroke. And in the combustion stroke, both valves are closed. Cool. And both of them have rotated clockwise by 90 degrees. And then in the power stroke, again, they're both closed, and both of them have rotated by 90 degrees. Cool. And then the exhaust stroke, they rotate by 90 degrees again, and now the exhaust cam pushes down the exhaust valve, and that lets the exhaust air from in the engine that just combusted to leave. Now there is a problem, and that problem is, well, okay, this is the normal routine. All cars do this. Your car does it. If it's stock, it basically does this. Now there is a problem, and that problem is, let me get to it. All right, exhaust, bang, it stops right there. There is still that much combusted air stuck in the cylinder, and you don't want that. You want to remove all of the combusted air from the cylinder. Why? Because combusted air can't combust again. Well, technically it can if your car runs lean, which technically like all cars do, but we're gonna assume it runs stoichiometric, which means there is no leftover oxygen in the exhaust air. Cool, so you want to remove all the exhaust air, but that isn't what's happening here. What's happening here is you're left with some exhaust air inside of the cylinder because it doesn't go up all the way. You're still left with that bit of room. Okay. Cool. So let's put some simple numbers to that. So let's say you have a compressor, or what's it called? Let's say you have a pressure ratio of 10, which means that volume 1, volume 2, volume 1, volume 2. That means that volume 1 equals 10 times volume 2. So you're at volume 1 on the intake, and then you go to the combustion, and your piston goes all the way up to volume 2. So volume 2, volume 1, volume 2, volume 1, volume 2, volume 1. Cool. But because volume 2 is not 0, it is some positive number, there's still some exhaust air in there. Cool. So what is cam overlap and how does it help? Well, basically, there's a lot of words on this drawing, but the important thing is there is a region, I'm gonna make it red. There's a region where there's overlap, which means the exhaust is open while the intake is open. There's a bit of overlap. Why do you want that? Well, if there's a bit of overlap, that means, maybe I should have drawn this out beforehand as well. That means, probably should have drawn this out beforehand, but that's fine. Both of the valves are open. What's a good way to draw these? There. Yeah, that's fine. And you've got new air coming in. And you've got exhausted air leaving at the same time. So basically, you're in between step 4 and you're going back to step 1, and there's a bit of overlap between there. So that means exhaust is leaving while fresh air is coming in. So what does that do? That basically completely purges all combusted air from inside of here. It removes all of it. It blows it out. Any air will just get blown out. So that means instead of still having some exhausted air inside the cylinder, you don't have any. You have all completely new, fresh air. Now, you're never gonna 100% purge the, what's it called? The combustion area, because you just can never get to 100%. But you can get closer and closer to 100% by increasing the overlap between the valves. Yeah, you can just keep on growing these. You can keep on growing that angle and get more and more air or combusted air out of the cylinder. Cool. What else does this diagram tell us? Well, I guess a side note, you can also increase the rate at which air enters or combusted air exits the cylinder by how big these lobes are. If they're bigger, that means these will come down more. And you have to be careful if you install bigger camshafts, because if they're too big, what could happen is you push them all the way down such that when this piston goes up, it hits the valve and breaks the valve and breaks your whole engine. So you don't want that. So you want to be really careful when installing bigger camshafts. But the idea is it increases that, which means, notice how like squiggly, or not, like the air has to like curl around. It has to curve around a bunch of geometry to get inside the cylinder. If you increase, well, what's a good way to draw it? All right, just off to the side over here. Bigger. So first option is an extended lobe, and the second option is a normal size lobe. So the extended lobe means that your valve goes down farther. Normal size lobe means your valve doesn't go down as much, or very much at all. In this case, the air can very smoothly come in here. Very smoothly come in here. But in the normal way, it has to go it has to sharply change direction, which creates kind of a back pressure. Technically, in the Bernoulli equation, what it would do is in your H loss term, it would increase KL. The K loss term would increase, and that means more back pressure and more pressure loss and lower velocity and all that stuff. So bigger camshaft or bigger lobes mean that there's less K loss, which means that air can enter and exit in your cylinder faster, which is good. That's what you want, because it means you can rev higher. Cool, I think that's about it. So again, the big thing that cam overlap solves is the fact that you still have that much combusted air in the cylinder when it goes up and completes its exhaust stroke. And that stays there during the next combustion cycle. And you don't want that, because combusted air ideally can't combust again. So to fix that, you add a bit of overlap And that means that both valves are open partially simultaneously, which means the air can go in. What's a different color? Air can go in and go out. And go out. That was a terrible line. I ran out of space. And that means you can fully purge the, what's it called? The piston before it goes back into its intake and combustion strokes. Cool, so I guess we could just do some math, some easy math. So continuing on with the pressure ratio of 10, before, so if you don't have cam overlap, you have, what would it be? 90% new air. I should say, what should I say? I think new air is fine. And you have 10% exhaust, which means you can only combust 90%. So you're making 90% of your possible power. And this is like every car stock is making 90% of its possible power. Well, X percent based on the pressure ratio. Cool. However, if you have cammed, or if you have cam overlap, means you get 100% new air. And that means more power. Specifically, in this case, it would mean, what would it mean? 100% over 90%. Equals 1.11. So by camming pressure ratio 10 cylinder, you would get plus 11% more power. And that is what you want. You want more power. Now, you'll also have to retune like the injecting and all that stuff of fuel to inject more fuel to take advantage of this new air, because your engine's probably tuned for only having 90% new air. But after you tune it and you install the camshaft, you should be making 11% more power if you have a pressure ratio of 10. And this is not including turbocharger pressure ratio. If you have a turbocharger, still use this value. Don't use the turbocharger pressure ratio, because, yeah, you care about volume, not really pressure. Cool. I think that is it. Cool beans. All right, one quick note. I mentioned that you want bigger lobes. You want bigger lobes because it'll move the, what's it called? The valve down farther as opposed to normal. Which means smoother airflow, which is correct. And the reason why you want that, I said that the reason why is because the air will move faster through. It'll move faster through here and leave faster, and you can rev higher. And that is not the reason why. The reason why is because the air is sucked in. And it's shot out by energy consumed, or like it literally takes energy from the engine to pull in air and shoot out exhaust air. And the more energy that it consumes, the less energy goes to your wheels. And you want as much energy to go to your wheels as possible. So you want to lose as little energy as possible by sucking in and blowing out air. Yeah, just to put that in equation form. wheels. It's work of the wheels, well, energy of the wheels. Assume it's the same thing. Energy of engine minus energy of I'm gonna just call it airflow. Minus energy of airflow. Cool. And yeah, if the air can flow more smoothly versus making sharp edges, sharp changes, K loss goes down, which means head loss goes down, which means you lose less energy to pushing out the air or pulling in the air in your intake or exhaust stroke, which means that the amount of energy that your wheels see, the horsepower at your wheels, is higher. Yeah, I just wanted to correct myself on that. Very cool.